going to start this one, I think, on a somber note. So, we'd be remiss. I mean, we're diehard fans, and although it wasn't my era of hockey, the name Boris Salming is like iconic. Doesn't even really do it justice to stories too that we've heard over the last week, 2 weeks really, ever since his night at the I was about to say the ACC, but it's Scotiabank Arena. I've really come to even have a further appreciation for how good he was. I mean, my father's generation always talked about Boris Salming, which was so weird for that generation of guys who came up, you know, through and not that he was a Russian, he wasn't, he was a Swede, but you know, all the Cold War era where people were kind of, and Don Cherry was all anti-Swede and it was kind of anti-foreigner, anti-European hockey player. And to see what he's done for the game and done for European players has been phenomenal. So we're going to start on that note. We don't want to hang on to it, but want to, of course, pass on our condolences, I guess, to anyone out there affected by or feeling poorly about the passing of Boris Salming. He's a fantastic man. Patty, you ever get a chance to rub shoulders with Boria?
Yeah, I've met him several times, actually. Fortunate to go to some Leaf practices over the years through a really good friend that works for the Leafs. So, and you know what? Oftentimes he was sitting there watching game day practice. I actually had some really good chats with him, some pictures, and trying to find autographs here that I had from him, but always a gentleman. And I was always mesmerized. Like when he'd shake your hand, it was just like shaking like concrete. It was just, he was just such a strong man, and the face with the 300 stitches that he had. Mm-hmm. Like I had read there the other day that he had never gotten a fight until he came to the Leafs. And apparently his first fight in the NHL was against Dave the Hammer Schultz. So welcome to the NHL. But like the guy, I don't know, like he came over, I don't know, I wouldn't consider him to be a soft player, but from what I heard, again, he wasn't that rough and tumble guy, but that's not the image that you would see now. He was that 5-tool player. It was 148 goals he scored in Toronto, which is amazing for a defenseman. Yeah, I've had a few opportunities to meet him. They were always great, and unfortunately he had to go through that horrible disease, which is happens all too often. But yeah, you'll never hear a bad thing about Boris Salming. And I look at Sittler, that was pretty rough watching that. And I even saw it today. I forgot they were teammates in Detroit together. I don't know if they both landed in Detroit at one point in time, which was odd to see, but I don't know if they were actually teammates. So yeah, I feel bad for Sittler and even Willie and all the Swedes. I thought it was pretty amazing that Keefe was able to. I didn't realize we had that many Swedes on our team. I guess I did have had to count them up, but the fact that we were able to put 6 out there for that opening face-off was pretty amazing.
Yeah, there was a time when we only had Carl Gunnarsson. He was the only Swede, and he used to say, you need a Swede to succeed.
Yes.
And he is not wrong. Some of the best hockey players on the planet have come out of Sweden, and that road was paved by Boris Salming. So, again, our condolences to Boris, family, of course, friends, and all that good stuff. But we'll leave that as it is. We got a podcast here, and we've got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. So we'll dive into, of course, our last podcast. The Leafs just finished the California trip, so we'll leave that alone. We're in a much different spot now. We're going to talk about the highs, what we can expect going forward, and I don't know. Maybe I'll hit Patty up for some kind of perspective on. I love Patty's perspective on where we still need to improve. So let's get this going. Big shout out, of course, to the Delaney Hockey Program, our sponsor for season 3. DHP, again, if you're looking for those guys, www.delaneyhockey.ca. You'll get all their upcoming events, different camps, schools, and some promotional stuff. They're now sponsored by True Sports, or True Hockey, I should say, from True Temper Sports. And of course, we're going to talk about one true athlete at this podcast. I'm sure it's impossible not to talk about him. We're going to hit on Mitch Marner during this one as well. So lots to chat about. Hope you guys stick around till the end. It's going to be a great one. So titter tatter, let's get at her. Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the Deke Snipes LA podcast. It's season 3, episode 3. Ooh, 33. We have any noteworthy 33s in history? You're my numbers guy.
Um, what was Daniel Merriwa? He was 32. I'm pretty sure.
I can't think of
Stumpy
the
was
33.
32. Drake Berehowski?
Now you're digging deep.
I'm pretty sure.
Funny story. I was talking to him not so long ago. Anyway, that's a whole
Oh, yeah?
that's a whole another conversation for
It's
another time.
same rookie card, the Young Guns card, same year as Yager, John Slaney.
John Slaney.
That same group.
Man, that'd be a great guest too if we were ever nailed on Slaney. He was coaching in the AHL.
Oh, he'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, he'd be a great guest. Maybe I should look at that.
Yeah.
Hey, John Slaney, if you're watching the podcast, feel free to look us up. Now, John Slaney, for anybody who doesn't recognize the name, he's a native son of Newfoundland and Labrador, like myself and Patty, and our other two hosts, which are absent tonight. But Slaney scored a big goal in the World Juniors and kind of put Newfoundland hockey on the map at a time when there wasn't a big lot going on here. So, yeah, he's a bit of a local celeb, I guess, or
yeah,
I guess more of a legend now, or folklore kind of thing. Like I think a lot of the younger kids wouldn't even know who he is.
Well, you know what? He's TJ Brennan of Newfoundland because he was like TJ Brennan. He was probably too good for the AHL.
Yeah.
Could never get that shot in the NHL.
Yeah.
Slaney, sure, is he still the top point getter among defensemen in the AHL? I think he is.
It's possible.
I'm pretty sure he is. I think he broke that record, which he had so many years, and it probably never will be broken. I think
he was drafted by Washington, right?
Yeah, he spent some time in Phoenix, Pittsburgh's organization. Just never got that call up, and he probably like Washington were good back in the day. So were Pittsburgh. Not so much Arizona, but just could never finish it to get that shot.
Nope, that's just unfortunate. We've had a lot of great players from the island kind of slip into that spot and that moment in time. The one that always sticks out to me is, I mean, he's a recent guy, is Colin Greening, right? And Greening had a decent NHL career. I mean, he put together a lot of games. I wouldn't even call him a guy who didn't make it, but I always felt like Colin could in the right place. I just don't think he was in the right place. I mean, he played with a really bad Leafs team.
Yeah.
He came off of, he started playing with a what I would consider a good Sens team. He was on top line with Spezza for a while.
He was,
and,
yeah.
He produced. Well. He had a really good season there at one point. But I think in a different setting at a different time, I think Greening would have been a really, really solid top 6 NHL forward for a long time. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the local greats. We're here to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is episode 3. Episode 1, we started off, was just after the California road trip. So what a time to record your first podcast of the year. And when the sky was falling in all shapes and facets, it was probably one of the darker times for me as a fan. I mean, I was really not feeling it. Like, I mean, I was really, really starting to question what was going on here. I'm always pretty even keel with it all, but that was bad, and I really didn't think they were going to come out of it. But that following week, they had a win and loss, a win, and then suddenly the wins became more predominant than the losses. And the only gripe I think anyone's got, and it's a pretty weak one right now, is that they can't finish in overtime. Well, I can live with that for now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 3-on-3, they don't play any of it in the playoffs. It's kind of more for entertainment value than it is an actual demonstration of what kind of team you have. Would I like for them to win a couple? Yeah. Should they? 100%. On paper, there should be no overtime losses unless they're playing Edmonton. But they're not doing it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's like the furthest thing from a concern to me. But for you, man, what do you think? What do you think spurred on the turnaround? Was it the depths of despair that they were into, or what? What do you think?
You know what? I was in the same mindset as you because let's call it the Matthews era. It was a pretty dark start. Like, I can't recall too many periods other than when Babcock got fired where things weren't going great. But the guys were still young then, but now they're a little bit more mature. I thought I wasn't sure we're getting out of this. And I can remember a game. It was the Philadelphia game on a Wednesday night where if Toronto don't win that game, I was quite confident Keefe was gone the next game or gone that night. So And you know what? There was nothing really working with that team. I didn't see any type of. It wasn't like they were getting bad puck luck. They just weren't playing good at all. And the only thing that was really going for him was goaltending. It's not like we were getting, but the rest of the players, no one else showed up. William, Johnny T early on, but so the fact that they came out of this and they've got one regulation loss in November is quite amazing. I can't pinpoint one thing. Maybe it was changing up the lines, Marner with Nylander, switching them around. I just think it just started to click, and it's not like they. I think the one big thing, actually, now that I think of it, that back-to-back wins in Boston and Carolina, that was massive. Was that before the West Coast series or after? That was after, wasn't it?
After. That was after.
Yeah, like that's huge. Like you're beating serious teams there. But like the boys started clicking. I wouldn't even say Matthews is in his zone yet. Like he'll get there. There's one guy I'm definitely not worried about is Austin Matthews, but it's funny how things go because the one worry that we had coming into the season was goaltending, and really, like all three have been very good.
It goes to show in my like sitting back and looking at all this objectively, it shows me just how little the fan base and the media knows about this actual team.
Yeah,
because you're right. All the talk was how atrociously bad the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to be, either A, in their own end defensively, but more predominantly, all the talk was goaltending. They should never let Jack Campbell go. They went and replaced him with an injury-prone Matt Murray and an unproven Samsonov. All these different things, and I mean, it's just when Matt Murray is in the crease. I remember one podcast last year, it was you actually said it. You said something to the effect of when Campbell's in the net, I feel 100% confident in that guy. It was at that time right before the All-Star game when he was just rolling, right? Like, I mean, he was just like he was almost unbeatable unless it was just something ridiculous like Matt Murray is letting in, like just fluky goals, weird bounces, that kind of stuff. Tips, that's about it. But yeah, like I said, I remember you saying that about Campbell, and I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking, man, I feel exactly the same way about Matt Murray. Like he's so steady. I
don't think anything's going in.
Well, so many times as a Leafs fan, you hear the old adage, he wishes he had that one back, right? How many times have you heard him say that about Matt Murray? He doesn't, because he don't let those in. Like if it's a clean shot and he got to look at it, he's going to stop it. And I don't know. And I don't know why we're surprised about that. I mean, on a good team, he's a very good goalie. On a bad team, most people are bad goalies. I mean, there's only one Carey Price in the world, right? He was on a bad team and he carried them right to the Cup final. To have the goaltending that we've gotten, and I mean, really, and no real kinks in the armor, really. I mean, even our third string, and trust me, I haven't had a problem with Eric Källgren since he was called up last year. I mean, the games that Källgren lost last year were not his fault. Games when we lost when he was in net was because either A, our forwards didn't produce, or B, the defenseman completely hung him out to dry. Like it was one of those situations where he was facing 2-on-1s. I remember it was the game last year. We gave up like 6 breakaways in the same game, and Källgren was in net. Like, and he actually shut the door on most of them. He let in a couple of goals, but like they lost, but they could have atrociously lost, right? Scouting reports on the kid were always good. He was, like a bit of a mystery of a Swedish goaltender who was coming into the league, and no one really knew what was coming. But man, I really think the kid's an NHL goalie now today, as we speak. I think if he was traded, he'd be a backup in another city, and a good one. So to have that kind of depth in goal, certainly, nearing the end of the season, later on when, the injury bug may come back around and may strike him or Samsonov, hopefully not, but it's completely plausible, probably probable, given histories. Having a young kid who's not prone to injury and plays incredibly well, I think is going to be a real boost to the team. So again, goaltending, I can't say enough good about it. I mean, we could spend the whole length of this podcast talking about the steadiness of Matt Murray and how much better he's playing this year than Jack Campbell. And I hate doing that. I don't even like when people do that. They start saying, "Oh well, Campbell's having a bad run," blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, he is, but
I only do that for the fan base, everybody was so sour on Dubas going after Murray and letting Campbell go, but as soon as I heard the Campbell 1 of 5 years versus Murray only having 2 years. Then the debate was over. Murray's 2 years younger as well. What I find funny with the whole Murray debate was, and I really didn't have an opinion on it one way or the other because I have Dubas is the expert. I'm not. Like, how the average fan would think that he's going to go out there and make a move that's not, that he don't think is in the best interest of the team is beyond me. That's kind of how I think about these things. But to have the argument that he's not a good goalie because he played for the Ottawa Senators, like really, really not a good measuring stick playing goal for that team. And then they just toss away the two cups that he's won. Like, I don't know. I think it was unfair. And to get Samsonov on wasn't his contract for like 1.5 million or in the 2 or something?
The catch with his contract is not even the value. The catch with his contract is he's an RFA at the end of it. Like, they didn't qualify him in Washington, which blows my mind. I don't even, like, how deep, I can't even name the 2 goalies who are in Washington. Like, how good are they that guy doesn't even get a qualifying offer?
And Vanacek didn't either. Vanacek is the goalie that's the best goalie in the league right now in New Jersey.
I don't get it. I mean, I've always been one of these guys who kind of, I don't understand goalies. Goalies are strange. They're weird. They're not your typical athletes. They're not your typical hockey players. And you can kick a guy around from team to team to team, fan base to fan base to fan base. But when a guy hooks in the right place with the right group of people, and I think the right coaching staff, I think goalie coaches are probably the most underrated people involved in any franchise. I really do. I don't know a lot of goalie coaches. I only know one. But I really think keeping those guys head in the game on a daily basis is the most fundamentally important part of any team.
Confidence is huge too.
Oh my God. So I mean, all the performance coaching and stuff that they do with these guys. I mean, like, I got 2 kids there now in hockey, and I'm praying neither one of them are a goalie. Praying. Yeah. They're kind of half showing interest. I'm like, no, you don't want to do that, because, like, 1, I don't want stress. 2, I don't want to put them through stress. Like, you got to be a certain kind of person, a weird person too, to be a goaltender. No offense to all the goalies out there, but man, you're a unique bunch. I got to tell you.
But how good is the Leafs defense as well? Like, they're top 5 in defense this year. So if I go back and look at previous seasons or back to the off season, goaltending was our worst. Then it was defense was our worst, and offense was the thing that was going to guide us. Well, hasn't that shifted around where goaltending and defense have been so good, even with 3 big defensemen down, the boys are still doing it. So I don't know, with the sky falling thing, I thought it was as well, but to come back and have 1 regulation loss in November, and what are they, 4th place now or 5th by points percentage? Didn't realistically think it was going to happen. And again, you don't have Matthews going at his full tier pace either.
It's funny how we're saying that, and it is true, because the guy put up 60 last year, which hasn't happened in when Stamkos did it 12 years ago, something stupid like that. Like, I mean, this is not an everyday occurrence in a league where you got 400 of the best hockey players on the planet all in one league, and a player hits 60 once a decade. So, like, we're saying Matthews is not at his normal clip, which is true. However, he still has exactly as many points as arguably our best Maple Leaf, which is John Tavares. Have exactly the same number. They got 25 points. They're at a point per game.
Expectations is a hard thing. You know what I mean? Like,
it really is, because here, like I said, here's Matthews. He's on pace for possibly a career year in points, but all we worry about is the goal scoring. And I could care less if he scores another one. I legitimately, if Matthews finished the year with 12 goals, 12, 13, 11, he's at 11 now, I think. Yeah. If he finished the year with 11 goals and we end up in a playoff spot, I do not care. If he got 100 points and 11 goals.
Well, you know what? Like, if that means, because the biggest surprise for me this year, let's forget about the goaltending, the fact that Johnny T is back. Like, I think,
I don't know if he's
back. I would say the most improved player, but like he's back. He's back to a point. Yeah, he deserved his money last year. Did he have 80 points or something? But like this year,
he's at another level, is what it is.
He's like a different man again.
I don't even like saying he's back, because I think he's playing, and all the analytics guys will tell you that he's playing at as good of a clip or better than he did in his prime in New York.
Well, his points per game prove that he's been better in Toronto. So it's.
But you watch the games too, and you just watch he's playing with a different like John was always I love John Tavares before he was a Leaf. I always said, you know, if there's one guy I could get, if there's one guy, you know, it was always, every year was Rick Nash is coming to Toronto, Steven Stamkos is coming to Toronto, you know, all these guys, Drew Doughty is coming to Toronto. Like it was always somebody, and I was always saying, no, the guy we want is John Tavares. If John Tavares was ever to become a Maple Leaf, that would bring us a cup. That was my theory. That was even before the Matthews era. I was like, this guy needs to be a Maple Leaf someday. And I was always a huge fan because I've always liked those kind of the Patrice Bergeron way, you know, like the not a big
No
personality,
nonsense.
quiet leader, but gets it
Yeah.
done. You know, fills the awards cabinet, all that, you know, checks all the boxes. And I think John is a really good role model for kids as well. Like, not to say that the young guys aren't, but John's got his
Professional.
poo together, right? He's a pro.
Yeah.
So like it was never an issue for me, but to see him now the way he's playing now compared to even his earlier years as a Leaf, he's sacrificing everything. Like every shift, like he's taking hits to make plays when they're up by 3. You know, like he's not shying away from anything, which kind of stresses me out a tad sometimes. I'm like, I want to lay off there, John. Like we're sitting pretty here 4-1, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you don't need to be putting yourself in a vulnerable spot because we don't need that. But like there's no shutting it off for him. Like there's just he's decided now that this is the time. He sees the window. He understands the logistics of all this. He knows he's a couple of years away from taking Giordano contracts, and now's the time to get this done. Because that's the scary reality is that you're not going to be able. I shouldn't say you're not going to be able to. You're going to have to be very creative to keep the 4 of those players on this team. Very, very creative, because William Nylander is probably the best bang for the buck in the league right now when it comes to top 6 forwards.
No doubt. Like, and he's been flying since day one of this season. And we haven't even talked about Mitch Marner. Like, how crazy is that? The man is about to tie a record for points in a stretch. Like, what that guy does everything. Like I saw him out the other night blocking shots. We all know he plays even strength power play, PK. He's played defensive points this year, so I don't know. You asked a question in the chat the other day between 4 of us. Who would you want to keep? I still got Matthews or Marner. I'm still with Matthews, but I'm much happier when both of them are on the same team.
Let's talk about that, because I find that fun, because this is like cursing to Leafs fans, right?
Yeah.
The question I pose, because I always do this, because I love gauging reactions. Certainly when we're flying high, and we've been flying about as high lately as you can get. I posed a question in our group chat between myself and my 3 compadres here. If it came down to it and you could only keep one, Matthews or Marner, who would you keep and why? And Patty let off. Patty couldn't help. He's like I immediately sees Patty Phillips is typing, right, and then there was a pause where he wasn't typing. He was typing some more, and there was a pause, and so like I'm like, okay, I'm really screwing up Patty's Friday night here, right? But anyway, Patty comes back and he says, yeah, no, he said I got to go with Matthews, blah blah blah. Go ahead with your reasoning.
I just think Matthews is the ultimate star pro, that big center that every single team looks for. I think he compares most to Mario. I can't recall another player with that size and hands since Mario. I know Lindros was there, but he was a little bit more stiff. You know what I mean? Not the same caliber, but I think if you want to build a team around someone, and you have the choice of a big number 1 center who can score, who can do it all, plays the 200-foot game, you got to go with the big center, because every other team is looking for one. Nothing against Mitch Marner. Doesn't help that I have Matthew Skates here and I have an investment into his game used gear. So trying to appreciate the value of his gear, but to me is actually a no-brainer. I don't care what Marner does this year. Love the guy, but just he's the guy you'd want to build your team around.
For me, I chose Mitch Marner, and I'll explain it, and then I'll give you some more food for thought. So my thought process is a very simple one. Mitch Marner, to me, he's going to get his points regardless. And when I say regardless, I mean regardless of who he's playing with, what team he's playing on. If they traded Mitch tomorrow to Arizona, right, he would be their top line right winger, 100%.
Yeah.
He'd still play all the roles he's playing in Toronto, and he'd still get his points. The team would be atrocious, and they'd have an amazing number 1 line, but they'd lose a lot of games, 6-4, 6-5, but Marner would still get his points. He's proven that over the course of, what's he into now, 6 seasons. He spent a large portion of the early Babcock years not with Matthews at all, except for on the power play, where Matthews didn't really score. Yeah. Matthews was prominently a 5-on-5 player in his earlier years, which is kind of flipped this year. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. And Mitch still led the team in assists. Fast forward to later into the John Tavares years. Again, John Tavares comes to the team, who on any other team in the league is your number one center, and Marner's still getting his points, right? Fast forward, Babcock's gone. We have this epiphany where let's skate these two guys who love each other together and see what happens. Matthews wins the Rocket Richard 2 years running, much to the chagrin of Mitch Marner. You know, yep. He loved it. He liked it more than if he would have won it. So I honestly think if you skated Marner on the third line in Toronto, the team would actually score more goals. I'm not even kidding. Like if you were to slide up, I don't know, whoever, Nick Robertson. If Nick Robertson was John Tavares's regular winger, that was and some other Joe Blow on the other wing. Don't care who it is. Tavares is still going to get his points. Yep. Matthews and Nylander, dynamite. They're like what Willie brings to the table in puck control and controlling the flow of the game and giving Matthews that bit of space when there is no space to be got blows my mind. They're a perfect combination. Leave that alone. If you were to slide Marner to the third line with anybody, the rookie, like I honestly think that line will put up a couple of goals a game because that's the kind of player he is. And to me, when you've got a player like that to me is both a generational talent and one that I don't think is replaceable at all. There's a lot of centers. There's a lot of number one centers in the league who can't produce at the clip that Mitch Marner does as a winger. So that was my argument for it. And I think a strong one at that. However, you can't go wrong choosing the Hart Trophy winner either. My last argument to the Hart Trophy winner is, does he win a Hart Trophy without Mitch Marner?
Well, I don't know. Like the guy, well, that's a 100-year debate. Like he can't score if nobody passes him the puck, but well, the opposite is true as well. If the guy can't hit the broadside of a barn, it doesn't matter how good the pass is. So it's, put it this way, we're very fortunate to have both of them.
And that was going to be my last point, is that if this is even a thought process where if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast, you're like, this guy doesn't have any clue what he's talking about, he's an idiot, I'm turning this off right now, then yes, this discussion is not for you. But if at any point during this conversation you said, you know what, there might be something to this, if you thought that for even remotely a second, that means the Toronto Maple Leafs are in an incredibly good spot, because you're questioning whether the second line winger is as good of a player for your team as the guy who just won the MVP for the league.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I don't want to go off on a big Mariners, top 3 in the league, top 5, top 10 in the league. I don't want to even get into that debate, because again, this is as broad as the day is long, and it's the 100-year debate, like you said. But I know where he sits in the grand scheme of things on this team, and it's 1 or 2 for me.
Oh, no doubt about it. You know what drives me crazy? Because he'll enter if he keeps on going out with this streak, it's going to end eventually, but then he'll just pick it up again.
Just start another one. Yeah.
He'll just start it again. He's just so good. Like he don't have off nights. He does something special every night. The one debate is that he's going to start getting serious Hart Trophy consideration. And I always hate the argument that it's McDavid's to lose right now, even this year after not winning it last year. Until that team, Edmonton, are more competitive than they have been, then, because I hate the discussion or the comeback is, well, where would Edmonton be without McDavid? Well, that's the case for a lot of teams with their stars, but he hasn't really taken them too far yet. I know they had a bit of a playoff success last year with nothing of significance. So
neither have the Leafs, though. I mean, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I disagree wholeheartedly, because of the fact that I do agree with the whole, where would they be without McDavid? Without Connor McDavid, even if they had Leon Draisaitl, which they do, and no McDavid, that team doesn't make the playoffs. They're in a lottery spot. They're in like a high end, 1, 2, 3. I'm telling you, that team that team is McDavid centric all day long, no matter who they got there. They've built some good. They've made some real smart moves around them. You know, that Evander Kane trade or signing, being as contentious as it was the right move for the franchise, no question. And the stink blew off of it pretty quick when Kane started producing. So,
It's a hard debate. Like the whole Hart Trophy definition by itself, I think, is flawed because, yeah, give him the Art Ross every year, let him win the scoring title. But I think you've got to have some team success. Now, the first thing folks will say, Toronto hasn't had much success, but they have in the regular season. Edmonton has had some battles in the regular season, but like you can go down through every team. If Barkov is not on, if Florida don't have Barkov, do they make the playoffs? If Pittsburgh don't have Crosby, do they make the playoffs? I don't know. What I do think with Marner, he'll probably win the Selke before the Hart. I think if he continues doing what he's doing this year.
I'm surprised he didn't get a much stronger look last year. I thought defensively last year he was phenomenal.
And he'll go to a different level again.
Marner takes frig all penalties. He's playing in every situation, and very seldom does he find himself at a position and or hooking in around the gloves, that all stuff. That's where all the penalties. I don't know. I'd love to. I should look it up sometime. What percentage of penalties called in the NHL are hooking penalties? But it's got to be a majority. I mean, at least in the games I watch.
Well, right in the gloves, all that stuff.
Yeah, so silly. And when I say hooking, I mean hooking, slashing, because to me, what you call one could easily be the others in a lot of cases. But basically, stick infractions, it's got to be high up there. So no, I love the Marner conversation because he hasn't had it easy in Toronto. No, and he stretched the media in the off season. Well, they were pushing the narrative that, you know, this guy's got to go. You know, he had a bad playoff series there a couple of years ago where he made some bad mistakes and cost him some games in a way, shape, or form. But my argument is they wouldn't have been there to begin with without him. So,
well, and if you of the 4 contracts, if the only one that's really Matthews is not going nowhere, Nylander's contract is too good. Tavares is maybe too rich for anybody else.
There's no trade as well.
Marner is I still think a great contract at still a very young age. I think it's not easy for another team to fit that contract in, but I don't think we'll have to have that worry. I think he'll be a Leaf for a long while. And you trade a player like Marner. I've always said it. Same thing with Nylander. You trade a player like Nylander, you've got to go find another one. And
you don't unless you draft them generally.
And I don't want the Hall Larson trade ever happening in Toronto. One of the worst trades in NHL history.
No, Joe Thornton trade, same thing.
Yeah.
So here's where I want to land this, because let's tie it all together now and put a nice pretty bow on it. We talked about the defense and how we've all been shocked to shit to have. If you would have told me that Jake Muzzin, TJ Brody, and Morgan Riley were going to go down and we were going to go on a winning streak, I would have said, get your head checked. You don't know anything about hockey or this team. Are you out of your mind? This team never fails to surprise me for the good or the bad. Okay. When they're bad, I'm shocked. I'm shocked at the level of bad they are. To lose in that California series shocked me. To win in games that they're playing currently, I'm shocked. Right. So it begs the question. Okay, so everyone says, well, it's going to be really hard for them to keep all the top 4. Not going to be hard at all if you got a cheap defense, right?
Right.
Because right now, sitting is over $20 million in salary, and they're still winning. Yeah. And not only are they still winning, they're not winning by outscoring the opponents 5-4, 6-5, 7-4. They're winning by only letting in 1 goal.
Yeah.
Defensively, they've been incredibly strong on the backs of Mark Giordano, who was one of the best 5-on-5 defensemen in the league this year. 5 goals against, even strength. The best of any defenseman who's played over 200 minutes in the NHL this year, Mark Giordano, at $800,000 a year. So yeah, Mark Giordano leading the charge at 39 years old, playing north of anywhere between 20 and 25 minutes a game right now. Justin Hall, who I still think we should get rid of him, but has, since he's been playing with Giordano, has looked incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
2 youngsters as your middle pair, which I have no issue with either anyway. I think Timothy Liljegren is one of the most underrated players on the team. I'm actually starting to wonder if he's not a better defenseman than Rasmus Sandin, which
I think he's climbed him in the depth charts. I think
he's in the conversation.
Yeah. I'm totally shocked. I didn't think to be quite honest with you, I didn't think Liljegren was in the Leafs plans going back to last season before he got called up.
I thought he was going to be traded for sure as part of some deal. He's become indispensable for me.
Terrific value.
And that's no knock on Sandin. Sandin, I think, is he's an up and comer. He's a little bit younger than Liljegren, and all he needs is the opportunity, and he's got that right now. And lately, I mean, he's had his gaffes during the year. Some have ended up in the back of the net, some of them didn't, luckily, which is to be expected with young defensemen. But I mean, you know, he's one of those guys who, when he was in the World Juniors, won defenseman of the tournament. You go back and look at that list from year to year to year, it's filled with guys who are now making $10, $12 million a year. To Drew out right back to Chris Prongers of the world, the Eric Carlsons. All these guys were at that caliber when they were young, and they just continued on with it. And the amount of guys who won that trophy or won that award that didn't pan out is a lot less than the guys who did. So
he'll be fine.
I'm not one bit worried about that. And then you drop down to our bottom pair, which you would think would be where we'd be really struggling now, because we talk about our top three guys being out. We're not mentioning Jordy Ben either, who's been very effective again, to my shock and awe, has looked great. He's out as well, and now we're filling that spot with Victor Mete, who I thought was a great pickup to begin with. I mean, I thought he was a good young player when he was in Montreal originally. And some sort of a combination of Mac Hollowell, who, by the way, is one of my guys. Anybody who watches the podcast hears about my guys all the time. I choose guys every so often that I follow. Mac Hollowell was one of those guys. I was like, yeah, no, this guy, right-handed shot, good young player, came out of a good team in junior. Can you guess what junior team he played for? Anyone? No? Sault Ste. Marie right hands.
Oh, yes. Surprise.
Yeah.
Played with Sandin, didn't he? Same pairing.
That could be. That I don't know.
No. Or was that Timmins? Someone had the same pairing as Sandin?
Timmins is from the Sioux. 100%.
It was Timmins and Sandin. So they're the same pairing.
Right now, Mac Hollowell, who again I don't think has looked at a place at all. They keep saying too on the broadcast, which is 100% true. When you're not hearing a guy's name as a defenseman, something's going right.
Especially in your first 3 or 4 games.
He's a rookie. Little Birdie told me, someone on the know, that Hollowell and Matthews are tight. That they formed a bit of a bond 2 years ago, training camp type stuff, just similar personalities, like the same things, you know. Obviously Hollowell wasn't there.
Well, they stayed together during the was Matthews, Joe, Hollowell.
Yes, that's true too. During
Sandin, and there's someone else
during COVID.
Yeah, and apparently, so I'm listening to Matthews' interview last night after the game, and he's talking about Hollowell getting his first point, and he talked about in the first few days living in the house together, 5 of them. I can't think of the 5th person now. Think of it in a second. He said Hollowell didn't speak, but he said Jumbo pretty much got him out of his shell, and then he didn't shut up, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, now there you go. Love the guy.
No, I've been following him. After he was drafted. Followed his last year junior. Followed him up through now with the Marlies and whatnot. And I think he's a serviceable. He's a better version, I think, of Travis Dermott. Is basically how I put it. And I didn't think Dermott was necessarily a bad defenseman. Kind of haven't heard much about him since.
No.
But I think he's a better version of the same, and a right shot to boot. Which leads us to the conversation: is if we're getting it done now, then do we continue to load up on forwards? Because that's been the knock on Duas. Everyone keeps saying he's putting too much money into the forwards. Given the opportunity, do you save a contract like Willie's? Do you pay him his 10 million, 11 million, whatever it is he's going to be worth? Because he's worth it. He's probably going to score 40 goals this year. How many other players in the league are going to do that?
Yeah.
Probably 3 on his own team, but which is wild. Where they're sitting right now, you look at the top 20 in league scoring, and to see 4 Toronto Maple Leafs firm, and I mean not like ready to fall out, firmly placed in the top 20.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's like 4 guys on pace for 100 points, 3 on pace for 40 goals. Anyway, I'm gushing now over the Leafs and where
the Deering lies the problem.
Yes.
Are we ready to go to the problem?
Go to the problem.
So anybody who's a diehard Dies Blue, you probably want to end watching this now, but I'm not going to shit on the Leafs by no means, but their biggest problem is exactly that. They have nobody else scoring. And when was the last player that came up from the AHL that actually contributed from the Marlies on a regular basis? I cannot remember one.
No, my issue with the bottom six is they've constructed a team where the bottom six is not constructed to score.
Yeah,
If that makes sense to you, they're so focused in on having a defensive shutdown line and having uh, a minute eating group on the fourth line who can go out there and just spend a majority of time in the offensive end really doing nothing but just making life a little miserable.
yeah,
They spent so much emphasis on forming roles on a team that they haven't put together a line which is even designed to score in the bottom six. And that's my issue, because so strong as a finish that Pierre Engvall had to the season last year, when you look at that third line of Engvall, Kampf, and Holmberg's a shining star, mind you. I did not see that coming. But anyway, he's played. I mean, again, sample size being what it is, it's incredibly small. But I mean, over the 3 or 4 games he's played, he's looked great. Like he's popped in a couple. He's had several high danger chances, which I'm not used to seeing on the third line, like where he just ripped one high corner wide, just inches, this kind of stuff.
but Keith said he hasn't seen one mistake. He's looked through the video.
Yeah,
That's one
seen
thing,
that
which is
quote.
pretty. You know what? That's not an easy comment to make, because you don't
Well,
want to
Keith
blow
wouldn't
up
make
his
that
head early
comment.
on either.
Yeah. No, that's not a Keith like comment either. Usually
No.
Keith is glass half empty kind of guy.
Yeah.
So
Like Kerfoot is, in my eyes, doesn't do anything out there. Engvall, same thing. I don't know if anybody else on that team, other than if Robertson ever gets some playing time, who has the capability to replace the scoring of Mikheyev, and then you throw in Spez's numbers from last year. So everybody talks about all the Leafs defense is the problem. But you know what? Leafs didn't lose in the first round of the playoffs the last 4 or 5 years because of their defense. It's the scoring. The scoring really didn't show up outside of when the top 4 got shut down. There was nothing left. There was no one else to pinch in with a goal. So now, come trade deadline, you're going to see a boatload of names like Patrick Kane and all these names, which I think Dubas will go all in. And if there's one area, he's not touching goaltending. Probably will upgrade on defense if he can. Like a Chychrun trade still makes sense.
I don't understand why that hasn't happened yet, other than that the cost is too high. Like he right now, especially, and I guess it's one of those situations too now where if you're the GM of Arizona and Kyle Dubas's phone rings, you're handing them an anchor instead of a lifesaver. You're like, you need this. Here you go, but here's what I want.
But you know what Chychrun does that our team doesn't do? And I didn't realize it because I just picked him up in my fantasy pool. He had 8 shots in his second game back from injury. 8 shots on net. We don't have a team that shoots the puck. So I think he can add in both pieces. But if it's the trade deadline today, I'm looking to upgrade. And whether that's Patrick Kane and you slide someone else down, like Bunting really hasn't been producing at the level that he did last year.
Look good recently though, like that goal that Ray worked there last night. I mean, just a thing of beauty to see that kind of effort. He beat 3 guys to spring Matthews right in the slot, and like Matthews didn't even turn to go and try. Like Bunting is lying on the ice, and there's three players standing around him. Matthews didn't even go to try to recover the puck. Matthews skated to the slot, completely expecting Bunting to win that battle on his back. That's what amazed me. I was like, this is just so poetic for this team to be playing this well. And I think you're right. I think come the deadline, that's going to happen. The proof to my point that they're constructing a team not designed to score in the bottom 6 is this: when the season started, they had a 30-something-year-old Jason Spezza who still wanted to play NHL hockey on this team for a chance to win a cup. He very much still wanted to play, and the team said, "No, Jason, this is not what we want for you. We're going to go with signing an Obey Kubel and putting Zach Aston Reese on a PTO." Okay. Now there's not one hockey fan in the world. Even if you couldn't even name all the cities, you've only heard of a few players. If I put those 3 names in front of you and say which one of those guys is going to score more goals, irrelative of who his wingers are, you'd pick Jason Spezza, right? Yeah. So clearly that wasn't the concern in when they have all these year-end meetings and all this planning meetings and general management and da 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 da. clearly scoring in the bottom six was not where they identified as something that they needed to target. They needed to target ways to shut down the other team's scoring. So I'm on the same as you. I find it to be a bit concerning because I find that our bottom six tends to get outplayed a lot of times.
Yeah.
That being said, our top six right now, there's not a lot of teams that can skate a top six to match what the Leafs got. Top line, yes, there's lots of top lines at that McDavid line all day long. Colorado, there's lots of top lines that can match the Leafs. Top six, a second line that can keep up with what we got on the go there with Marner and Tavares.
Yeah. But if my thing is, if you're getting contributions at the very least from Kerfoot and Engvall,
yeah.
they're considered to be scorers, not at a large degree, but they're offensive players first, I would think. Maybe I'm wrong on Kerfoot. Maybe he's a defensive player that we all want him to be more offensive because of his speed. If we had that, but it's really nothing past that top four. Like no one has shown a glimpse that they're ready to bust out. And how many experiments have they had on their second line?
They got to give Robertson a better look though. Like this in and out of the lineup, sporadic gameplay. I don't think he looked bad enough to take him out. To be completely honest, I don't know what Keefe is trying to accomplish here. I don't know if he's trying to get more out of the kid now, so that when he does come in and gets a regular spot, that he's earned it. I don't know what his mindset is, but there's absolutely no reason why Nick Robertson should sit over anybody in the bottom six, and possibly Calle Jarnkrok, who's on the wing with Tavares right now. I don't see how any of those seven bodies have outplayed Nick Robertson. I think
what you're going to get from Nick Robertson every game. You're going to get full effort. He don't take shifts off. That kid don't. So, and I'm not saying that the others do, but yeah, I think you got to give him a chance. That's my biggest worry. Like if the scoring dries up on the top for the top two lines, like we're back to the same thing again. But
yeah, for anybody who wants the inside take on Nick Robertson, we did a podcast last season with the voice of the Toronto Marlies, Mr. Todd Crocker, and Todd spoke in depth about the level of intensity and the work ethic that Nick Robertson brings to the table day in, day out. When you're in the AHL and it's a much more close knit, bus riding, the commentators are down mixing it up with the team on the bus. Like it's a different lifestyle, right? And Todd got to know Nick really, really well. Nick's a special player. Go back and listen to the podcast. It's a good one. Todd's a great guy anyway. Love Todd. But yeah, again, that's where we sit. I like that you throw a little bit of negativity in there at a time when the sun is shining and people are booking their trips to Toronto for the playoffs and planning the parades and all that kind of stuff. We got to stay a bit grounded here, and there are still significant weaknesses on this team, and they will be exploited sooner than later. This is not going to continue. And when it does, the sky will be falling again, and there'll be heads rolling, and this one needs to be fired, and that one needs to be fired, and this one needs to be traded, and that one needs to be traded. But for now, Leafs fans, it's looking pretty good, right?
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
No complaints. No complaints. I'm back to no complaints. But one last point on that though, I recall back to the year before. I think it was the year before we traded Kadri, where we had third line was Kadri, Connor Brown, and Patrick Marleau. And that was supposed to be the difference maker. That you knew what our first line was with Matthews, second line with Tavares. Your top 5, top 7 teams could probably throw out a line that's going to match that first line. Or 10 teams probably could. And then you dwindle down a little bit more. A lot of really good teams probably had a second line that you could throw over the boards to match up with Tavares. But no one could match up with that third line. And they all sucked that year. And that's why terrible. That's why none of them were around, I think, the following year. They really had a tough year, and that was supposed to be the thing that put us over the top. They couldn't match up that third line because they brought grit, experience, scoring, everything in that line.
Speed, agility, the whole shoot match.
That was one year we could have went real far, but it just didn't happen. Anyways, I bring that up from time to time, but anyways.
And Patty's trying to ruin my day. It's kind of stuff that he texts me. So.
I know.
But no, that's well pointed out, and let's hope it doesn't get to that. Because right now, you talk about matching of lines. I don't think there's a team in the league that can match our second line. Not one.
No,
I've actually went to the point of looking to see, scrolling through line charts and everything else from different teams around the league, and you're going to be hard pressed to find a second line that's got the points production. Well, right off the bat, you got two guys at 25 points apiece on the second line. So, I don't know if there's another second line that got two guys in the top 20 in scoring. I highly doubt it. There's a lot of teams that don't have two guys.
I don't have any concern that that's going to end anytime soon. The way that Nylander and Tavares have played, or now Marner and Tavares, like they've been really good from the beginning. In the dark October, I think we probably went back on that first podcast. We said Tavares and Nylander have been really good. Like I don't foresee the Leafs going in a rut anytime soon, but
they shouldn't.
No.
Well, again, what it all comes down to is the goal injury bug, right? I mean, we're one stepping on a puck away from disaster every game, and everyone knows that. Hopefully, the top four stay healthy, and that's we're gonna live and die by that. Them four players. We've proven it because we've survived about as catastrophic a defensive letdown here when it comes to health as I never envisioned a situation where four guys would be out, four impactful defensemen would be out of this team, we'd still be winning. You take four of the guys out of the forward group, different kettle of fish, right?
We're going to be tough to score, and I don't think the talent is there to score.
No, it's not even close. Because again, that's not how the team is constructed, right? That's what all comes back to.
Realistically, it probably won't happen. Anyways, it's full faith in Dubas.
Me too. He's got my vote of confidence, and I'd like to think he's got Shanahan's got his back too. At least I hope so.
Yeah.
In any case, I think we should knock this one on the head, man. We've gushed enough. Surely we'll be back with another podcast later, talking about all the things that are going wrong in Leafs Nation and all those good things. Hopefully, we don't get to the point where we're talking about Tank Nation. I don't. Well,
Kyprios is on Twitter today.
God,
talking about apparently rumblings that Matthews could leave. Like the guys, you're just gonna get it. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. Why anybody would even bring that chatter up now? I know they're only looking for clicks or whatever, but I think we should ban that conversation here until at least next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a conversation clearly. Although he got his deal done, his I mean, he was an RFA at the time, but he got his deal done really quickly. His agent didn't balls around with it like Marner and Nylander did. He was just like, he was available, and then suddenly the deal was signed, and it didn't even hit the media. Like, he didn't even give it a chance to become an issue. And I think that's smart. Keep yourself out of the spotlight in that regard. Just play hockey. And I got a funny feeling that when the season ends this year, priority one is going to be getting Auston Matthews signed. Now, if he wants to leave, then yeah, that won't happen. But if there's even the slightest inkling that he wants to stay where he is and play with his friends, because that's what this is. I mean, there's a little family here now, right?
Yeah.
And having an actual chance to win, like, he's not going to go anywhere else that has a better chance of winning, because none of those other teams have just
nothing's automatic,
right?
Like Colorado wouldn't be able to fit him in.
No, and even if they could, it's not. There's none of it's a gimme, right?
Like, what team right now has $15 million, because that's what he's going to get paid. His cap hit is going to be 15. What team right now can fit it in right now, or can drop another $15 million, or multiple players that add up to $15 million cap
and be competitive?
It's not a hard contract. I don't care who it is. It's not an easy contract, I should say, to fit into any team.
No, you're right.
But I don't. Anyways, I don't want to talk about it because
again, Patty always finds a way to ruin my nights, and here we are again. So, on that note, we'll shut her down. If you've enjoyed the podcast, guys, normally there's 4 of us, at least 3 of us, but tonight just 2. We've got one guy who's working the midnight oil, and we got a young lady who's home. We wish her all the best. She's not doing so hot from a sickness perspective. There's some bad stuff going around. It's not COVID. That's hitting our area pretty hard. So she's resting up tonight. So hopefully she gives us a listen, and we're sending our love to Miss Kylie.
Flood Kylie with Twitter messages. That will that should annoy her.
Yeah, just
flood her Twitter.
Tweet her.
Yeah.
But big shout out, of course, guys, goes first and foremost to the Delaney Hockey Program. Big news to the Delaney Hockey Program. They actually just opened up their West Coast operation this week past. So Monday past, DHP West opened for the first time.
West Coast Newfoundland.
West Coast Newfoundland, yeah.
Not BC.
Yeah, exactly. West Coast of the island. So it's for anybody who doesn't know, it's a good 10, 12 hours between Port of Bass and St. John's, depending on stops and everything else. It's a half a day's travel. And DHP has opened up a Western branch out there, headed up by lead instructor Linda Massey. Linda's pedigree that Linda's got, go back to her hockey resume, is incredible. Talk about that another time because we got lots of DHP stuff to chat about as the year goes on. Maybe even get Linda on. She'd be an interesting chat, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, I may have to message Linda. But they opened up their very first camp over there. They've got a group of players come together for a power skating camp that's going to run for 4 weeks, and Linda's heading that up. And from what I heard, after having asked around, it was a hit on Monday. The kids loved it, and so happy for DHP on that front. They're a great group of guys, and certainly deserving of everything that comes their way. So, if you're interested in more information on DHP, you go to www.delaneyhockey.ca, and you'll get all their info there on upcoming camps throughout the year, locally in their Harbor Grace location, as well as things that are coming up in their Port of Bass location. There's rumblings of Christmas tournaments and all kinds of good stuff in the works. So again, check out www.delaneyhockey.ca. For us, if you've enjoyed the podcast, you can track us down a couple of different ways. So we run video podcasts. If you're watching this through our YouTube feed, we share that to Facebook and everything else, but you can search Deke Snipeseli on YouTube. You can also search up on Facebook, www.facebook.com/DekeSnipeseli. Most all of our content will be there. Audio feeds out the yin yang. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcast now, you can search Deke Snipeseli. Spotify is probably our biggest one. Actually, I looked at the analytics. Apple Podcasts is hot to trot now with Deke Snipeseli podcast, which is cool. So a lot of our listeners listening on Apple. We're also on Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, on and on and on. And by the way, guys, if you find a podcast provider that doesn't have the DSC podcast, let us know. Some click of a mouse, we can probably hook that up for you guys. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Click like, click subscribe, and give us a share. That never hurts either. There's lots of excited Leafs fans out there who might just like to sit back and gush over their team for once. So anyway, Patty, that's it from me. Anything from you?
Nope, all good. Go Leafs.
Go Leafs. Peace out.